Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: Indiana University's Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, presenting Security Matters, with tips for improving online security in 3 minutes or less.
Smithville Communications, serving Southern Indiana with high-speed fiber gigabit internet. Smithville Fiber Gigabit Technology. Tap the power.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana News Desk, part 2 of our report on Indiana's regulation of coal ash, why residents of this Riverside, Indiana community are looking for help.
People say, so what? Tell that to the people who live right downstream here, who probably fish in this river. 30 million gallons of toxic coal ash, that's poisoning the river, that's poisoning the fish that live here.
But environmental officials say their hands are tied by the lack of federal guidelines for the toxic byproduct. A look into how Indiana's proposed ban on same-sex marriage affected Tuesday's primary, and how the election was a wake-up call for some incumbents.
I thought I was doing a good job, and apparently there were people that thought I could do a better job, so that's my commitment.
And we go deep into the woods to hunt for Indiana's most coveted fungus, morel mushrooms. Those stories and this week's headlines right now on Indiana News Desk. Hello, I'm Joe Wren, and welcome to Indiana News Desk. We have several big stories developing this week, so let's get right to them. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have confirmed the first case of a relatively new virus in the United States known as MERS. The case was identified right here in Indiana. The man who has it is being treated in a hospital in Munster. Doctors say he is improving and will likely go home soon. No other cases have been identified, but that doesn't mean the threat is completely gone. Josh and Lynn reports on the virus and how prepared Indiana is for it.
This is what MERS, or Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, looks like under a microscope. Its symptoms include fever, cough, and shortness of breath.
Swift diagnosis, careful precautions.
At a press conference earlier this week, CDC epidemiologist Daniel Fiken explained how MERS was first discovered in the Arabian Peninsula in 2012.
Although we didn't know where it would happen, we're not surprised that MERS-CoV has come to the United States. We know that infectious diseases do not respect international boundaries. In this day and age of global travel and trade, infectious diseases can spread almost anywhere.
The American patient traveled from Saudi Arabia to Chicago, then took a bus into Indiana to visit family. He checked into Community Hospital in Munster with a cough, and the staff made the call to send tests to the State Board of Health. The patient is now isolated, and exposed family and hospital workers were also tested.
Employee and family results have all been negative to this point. The incubation period can be anywhere from 2 to 14 days as far as we are aware, with most cases occurring within 5 days. And we believe that we have been able to contain the exposure at this point, but out of vigilance, we are going to continue to monitor the situation.
MERS is a coronavirus, named for the crown of spikes on the surface. And of the people who have gotten it so far, nearly 1 in 3 have died. That's a high mortality rate, but Indiana University chemistry professor David Giedrock says the public shouldn't panic yet.
I think for this one, given the fact that human-to-human transmission, at least currently, doesn't appear to be that efficient, and the virus certainly doesn't persist in the community, I'm not so concerned about this one.
And despite MERS being relatively new, scientists weren't exactly caught by surprise. There's a lot of research on coronaviruses thanks to a more famous virus from a decade ago, SARS. Thanks to that epidemic, hospitals and agencies in Indiana have procedures in place for viruses with no known treatment. In this case, it included isolating the patient as quickly as possible, then isolating and testing anyone he came into direct contact with.
I want to assure Hoosiers that our medical experts, along with the CDC and hospital, are closely monitoring the situation.
The State Department and CDC haven't upgraded travel advisories to the Arabian Peninsula for now, and no other MERS cases have been detected in the U.S. But the concern is that this is the second major coronavirus outbreak in 10 years.
And so one might look ahead and say, well, Is this going to keep happening? And I think that's a legitimate concern. The next one, or MERS plus 2 or 3, in fact, may be much more deadly, if you will, much more pathogenic than MERS is. And I think that's the concern, and that's where resources need to be put in place to address some of these basic issues.
So far, there have been over 300 cases of MERS in the Arabian Peninsula, and scientists have tentatively linked the virus to transmission through camels. The Family and Social Services Administration announced this week that starting July 1st, it will no longer provide Medicaid dollars to cover costs for mothers who opt for early elective deliveries. The state has the 6th worst infant mortality rate in the nation, and as Kat Carlton reports, doctors say reducing the number of early elective deliveries could save some babies' lives.
For every 1,000 live births in Indiana, nearly 8 babies will die before their first birthday. Doctors say unnecessary early elective deliveries, or deliveries that take place before the 39-week mark without medical indication, are partly to blame.
Babies who are more grown, more fully developed, have more body fat, are able to regulate their temperature better. So babies who are born a little early have more trouble regulating their temperature. Inability to regulate a temperature can cause a significant amount of stress in a newborn, and that can impede other functions.
Health professionals say babies born prior to 39 weeks face an increased risk of feeding problems, respiratory distress syndrome, lower brain mass, and low birth weight.
And then kind of walk your fingers around and you find
early elective deliveries can also hurt mothers. Complications include increased risk of postpartum depression, cesarean delivery, and longer hospital stays. Right now, Medicaid covers half of all births in Indiana, and FSSA officials say with the new policy, Indiana will be the 4th state in the nation to stop paying for early elective deliveries. In a statement, Indiana Medicaid Director Joe Moser said, "This action sends a strong and clear message that we will not tolerate dangerous and unnecessary early childbirths, which puts our newborns at risk and increases costs in Medicaid." But some people in the prenatal industry say more needs to be done to help mothers bring their babies to full term. Georgianne Catalona runs Bloomington Area Birth Services, or BABS. She says one root problem is that 75% of mothers believe babies are at full term between 34 and 38 weeks of their pregnancy.
there are issues with maternity leave. There are all kinds of things that she's juggling that are not medical in any way, but she can feel social, personal, and cultural pressure to be like, you know what, I'm done. I'm so done with being pregnant. I want this baby to be here now. And it's not that those women are bad or that they're willfully trying to hurt their babies. She just doesn't have the information she needs. And she also probably doesn't have the support that she needs to get through those last few weeks.
Still, the number of early elective deliveries has dropped dramatically in recent years. The Indiana Hospital Association indicates they now make up less than 3% of deliveries in Indiana compared to 11% in 2012.
And health officials largely attribute that drop to changes in hospital policies. Most hospitals in the state no longer allow early elective deliveries without a medical reason. Primary elections were held across the state this week. There were no statewide races this election, leading to relatively low voter turnout compared to 4 years ago, although the Secretary of State's office will not have official numbers for about another week. But hotly contested races did bring out more voters in certain counties. Gretchen Frazee takes a look at some of those key races and the major issues that affected the outcomes.
Indiana's proposed constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage will not appear on the general election ballot this November, but it did seem to play a role in some of the primary elections. During a debate in the legislature earlier this year, Republican Representatives Rebecca Kubacki and Catherine Hewer voted against the amendment known as HJR 3. Both of them lost in their primaries against social conservative candidates who pledged to defend marriage between one man and one woman. Eric Turner authored HJR 3, but that didn't appear to affect his campaign. He won with 59% of the vote, even though he did receive some criticism for allegations that he violated House ethics rules when he lobbied against a nursing home construction moratorium, even though he and his son both have ties to the industry. Turner was cleared of those charges last month.
I believe I have 13 proponents.
Columbus Republican Representative Milo Smith was also a supporter of the marriage amendment, but his opponent, Bartholomew County Councilmember Ryan Lauer, did not make that an issue in the campaign. Instead, he largely focused on education issues. Smith won with 60% of the vote.
I feel relieved. This is the first time I've had someone from my own party challenge me, and I thought I was doing a good job, and apparently there were people that thought I could do a better job, so that's my commitment. I'm going to try to do a better job representing the people in my district.
Indiana voters renominated all their incumbents in the U.S. House of Representatives. All of those representatives won by wide margins. And Monroe County has been known as one of the counties with the slowest vote counts. But this week, it only took the county 3 hours after the polls closed to have all of its votes counted. Monroe County Clerk Linda Robbins attributes that to new electronic poll books.
Before e-poll books, the inspectors had to divide all the voted ballots by precinct, total them by precinct, and all the reports were done by precinct. Now we're able to do it by polling location, and it's just made their job much simpler.
This was the first year many counties in the state used e-poll books, and county officials reported few technical difficulties.
Many of the candidates who won in Tuesday's primary are uncontested going into the general election, but party leaders can still choose candidates to fill those spots before November, even if they didn't appear on the primary ballot. Now for headlines, we go over to Alex Dirkman, who has an update on this week's top stories.
Thank you, Joe. A Marion County Superior Court judge is ordering the Bureau of Motor Vehicles to immediately reinstate its personalized license plate program. The BMV suspended the program last year after the American Civil Liberties Union filed a lawsuit challenging how the BMV decided whether to issue personalized plates. The ACLU argued the BMV's standards were arbitrary and violated the First Amendment. The judge agreed and ordered the BMV to create new, clearer standards. A federal judge is extending an earlier order that requires Indiana to recognize the marriage of a same-sex couple. The two women are part of a larger lawsuit challenging the state's gay marriage ban. They married in Massachusetts last year and asked for emergency recognition of their marriage because one of the women is terminally ill with ovarian cancer. The judge granted their preliminary injunction that will stand until the broader case is resolved. In a statement, the Indiana Attorney General's spokesman says while the state is sympathetic towards the couple, it disagrees with the judge's ruling and will appeal. The head of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is being subpoenaed to testify before a House committee next week. This comes after a commander with the American Legion based in Indianapolis called for his resignation earlier this week. The American Legion alleges failed oversight led to dozens of preventable deaths at VA medical facilities, including 13 in Indiana. But the director of the Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs says he thinks it would be better for both his department and the American Legion to try and support the VA instead of criticizing it.
The VA has a long way to go with their benefits and with their medical care, and they've been caught off guard and never been able to reach the service needs and the costs with what they've been given.
Veterans Affairs officials say they take the allegations seriously and are calling for a nationwide review of their procedures. Climate change could hurt Indiana's agricultural industry. A White House report released this week showed extreme weather can cause crops to grow less efficiently.
Wetter springs and hotter, drier summers suppress yields, and our climate projections indicate that those are the conditions that will prevail in the future. So that's a clear challenge to our agricultural sector to try and adapt to those types of conditions.
Another Indiana sector vulnerable to climate change is combined sewage and overflow systems. Heavy rains overwhelm the systems and untreated sewage is discharged into waterways, creating a public health hazard. Pryor says researchers have more confidence now than ever that human activities are causing climate change and that climate change is occurring. She says Indiana is about 1.5 degrees warmer on average than it was a century ago. And the Drug Enforcement Administration is cracking down on synthetic drugs in Indiana and across the nation. The federal agency raided several locations in central Indiana this week that were distributing synthetic drugs, such as so-called bath salts and chemicals that mimic marijuana. The DEA is not providing specifics on the case, citing an ongoing investigation. But Joe, officials there hope that the effort will reduce the supply of the drugs that can be life-threatening.
And we'll have to follow up on the ongoing Indiana part of that investigation, too. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. We'll take you to a community where a nearby coal-fired power plant contaminated the drinking water, how energy companies are changing the way they store and reuse their byproducts, and why they say those methods are sustainable. And it's morel mushroom season. A hunter gives us his tips on how to find the prized fungi. Those stories right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
I can change the world with my own 2 hands, make it a better place with my own 2 hands. I'm gonna make it a brighter place with my own 2 hands. I'm gonna help the human race with my own 2 hands. I can hold you in my own 2 hands, and I can comfort you with my own 2 hands, with my own 2 hands.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Indiana has more coal ash ponds than any other state in the nation. Last week we explained how this power plant byproduct has come under scrutiny after a coal ash pond in North Carolina breached and leaked into a nearby river. This week in part 2 of our series, Jimmy Jenkins takes us to southwestern Indiana and the neighborhood of East Mount Carmel, where residents say contaminants leaked into their water and are endangering their health.
Coal ash is one of the main byproducts of burning coal. Power companies usually store it on site in large ponds and pits, but its storage is largely unregulated. In 2007 and again in 2008, 30 million gallons of water and coal ash spilled into the White River when levees at the Indianapolis Power and Light Eagle Valley station failed.
People say, so what? Tell that to the people who live right downstream here, who probably fish in this river. 30 million gallons of toxic coal ash that's poisoning the river, that's poisoning the fish that live here, and poisons people who eat it.
At the Duke Energy Gibson plant in the southern part of the state, there was no breach. Instead, the contamination happened over time as coal ash that was stored in a massive unlined pit at the Duke plant leached into the water table.
Several of their surface impoundments were leaching boron from them and were impacting drinking water wells nearby.
Evansville, a big auction.
Wayne Burns' mother and father lived across from the plant in the neighborhood of East Mount Carmel for a decade.
When we started out, the water was crystal clear, beautiful drinking water. I mean, tastes really, really, really good. Some of the best water in the county. When the power plant came in, it gradually started becoming worse. You could smell a little bit of it, and then it got to where it smelled like rotten eggs, and the water would actually turn brownish, and at the last it started turning black.
In response, Duke Energy began supplying the residents of East Mount Carmel with bottled water. Eventually, the company paid to build a water line from a nearby town to supply the neighborhood with clean drinking water. But Burns thinks the damage was already done. His mother died of kidney failure and his father shortly after of cancer. Burns says Duke admitted the coal ash basin near his mother's house was unlined. He tried to sue Duke to get the company to line the basins and conduct more testing, but was unsuccessful.
They have so many lawyers and they have so many politicians and whatever that backs them, and I don't think that just the average person can do anything about it. Matter of fact, I just about gave up.
Duke officials say they recently performed an internal survey of their ash basins and are taking steps to deal with coal ash in a safer way, like converting to dry handling.
That is the method that we are converting to across our Indiana system. When your ash is dry handled, it is stored in a lined landfill. The ash basins with water are different than that.
Prodiger says Duke monitors its coal ash ponds and the surrounding groundwater and regularly checks the structural safety of its levees and dams. But dry storage pits are still susceptible to leaching from rainwater. Tracy Branham of the Indiana Geological Survey has been conducting research that shows covering coal ash impoundments or storing it underground in coal mines is actually safer.
Rainwater leaches out more than the actual groundwater does. That's what we found so far. So that sort of suggests, because a lot of people used to say, don't put it below the water table because you'll get a lot of leaching out. But we're not finding that. We're finding you get more leached out from rainwater than you get when you put it below the water table.
Branham says the key is not to store too much coal ash in one site and to find other uses for the byproduct.
That's why beneficial use is important, because the less you have to put back, the more you can beneficially use, then the better off you are.
The beneficial reuse industry recycles coal ash into things such as roofing shingles, wallboard, and concrete. The coal ash is used as a filler to make the concrete stronger.
Fly ash and cement together become a cementatious material. That in turn is the glue, is what makes concrete become hard.
Concrete used in the new section of I-69 is full of coal ash. Environmental advocates like beneficial reuse, but they say it only deals with a small amount of the millions of tons of coal ash produced every year. The Environmental Protection Agency does not designate coal ash as a hazardous material, and there is no federally designated limit for safe levels of boron in drinking water. But a recent court decision may force the EPA to develop long-awaited federal guidelines for coal ash ponds that state agencies like the Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Environmental Management could enforce. But until then, the coal ash pile at the Gibson plant continues to grow, and Wayne Burns fears that not enough is being done to prevent future water contamination.
My mother and father have been drinking that for years, and which I'm not saying that's what killed my mother, but I don't think it really did her any good.
Hoosier Environmental Council Policy Director Tim Maloney joins us now for more. I have right here with me the new report from the Hoosier Environmental Council that just released this week, and some startling statistics. Indiana's record of spills and drinking water contamination among the worst in the nation, and some areas rated high as 5 hazard, meaning there is a risk to human life in the event of failure. How did it get to this point?
Well, it's been a pattern and a long-term record of state agencies as well as the federal government to just fail to come to grips with a known dangerous waste stream in the United States, one of our largest waste streams, and yet largely due to the influence of the electric utility industry and the coal mining industry, they simply have not adopted meaningful standards to govern how these wastes are handled and disposed of.
Now, there is some debate whether or not coal ash should be designated as hazardous material. Where does that debate lie?
The debate still goes on. What the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has done in their proposed rules that are still pending with the federal government is to propose 2 different alternatives to regulating these wastes. One would one proposal would classify them as special waste, but still treat them in terms of the disposal standards like it's hazardous waste, and that is the alternative rule proposal that we support. These wastes have been shown to leach toxic metals at level of concern when they come into contact with water, and the record of environmental damage and health problems is well documented, and we need strong enforceable federal standards.
And we talked in that story about reuse industry. What would it mean to those companies if it were to be designated coal ash as a hazardous material?
Well, the special waste rule proposal would exempt certain beneficial uses from that hazardous waste designation, and in our view, those legitimate beneficial uses would be the encapsulated uses like we're talked about in the story of it being mixed in with concrete. The risk is much lower for those kind of uses than using it as a fill material or an unconsolidated material that again could be exposed to water and the leaching process that creates the toxic contaminants. So beneficial use is legitimate, but we need to be careful how we do it.
You mentioned the EPA just a few seconds ago. Is there a recent federal ruling that may take effect?
Yes, in a court case that was brought by a number of environmental groups complaining about the delay in the EPA's rulemaking, the EPA has agreed to complete these new federal rules by December 19th, 2014.
Okay, well, thank you very much for adding to the discussion today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Pleasure to be here.
Spring is now in full swing, and that means mushroom hunters are out in full force to search for prized morel mushrooms. William Decker took us along on one of his mushroom hunts. He's collected more than 30 pounds of morels this year. Mushroom hunters typically don't give away the location of their hot spots, but Deckard says there are certain rules beginners can follow. He says while the weather is still relatively cool, hunters should be looking on southern hillsides where mushrooms are likely to get more sunlight.
And then later on in the season, in about another week or two, that's when you want to be deeper in the woods where it's dark, damp, cool, doesn't get much sun, because mushrooms burn up very quickly. I mean, they don't last long out. They'll last a few days and then they're gone.
And if you can't find any, you can try to buy some, but they're not cheap, Alex. Anywhere I saw from $20 a pound all the way up to $45 a pound.
It's because they're so hard to find.
And I hear they're really good too.
They are good. They're pretty good.
That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news in southern Indiana throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: Indiana University's Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, presenting Security Matters, with tips for improving online security in 3 minutes or less.
Smithville Communications, serving southern Indiana with high-speed fiber gigabit internet. Smithville Fiber Gigabit Technology. Tap the power.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.